In a video that's gone viral, my interview with a New South Wales Treasurer who denied knowing anything about the abortion bill from the Greens and then gave a pretty pathetic response. You guys have now exposed that there's more to this video than it seems, and that's today on The Dr. Joe Show. So first of all, it's so good to be back with you guys. I know we've had a week off the Dr. Joe Show, and I've got to say it was quite nice to just have the break and the time with the family. We had a lovely Easter, and I hope you guys did too. Over the break, we actually hit over 10,000 subs, and I was so excited. That was amazing to see the big responses to some of the videos, particularly that we did just before the break. So thank you so much for sharing those around. It was just incredible to see that growth in what's happening. You know, I'd hoped that we might get to 10,000 subs by the end of the year, but to have done that within 2 months is just amazing, and I'm very grateful to all of you. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please make sure you do, and make sure that you get the word out. You know, spread these around. So today I was going to talk about where we're up to with the New South Wales abortion bill campaign against the Greens bill, and I wanted to talk about some of the things that have been happening. There's been a lot happening actually, and so you know it feels like when we don't have the show every day, there's so much happening that I want to tell you guys about that I can't. So I've sort of gathered it all up for this episode. Quick recap if you're new here: the Radical Greens abortion bill was introduced by Dr. Amanda Conn, a former abortionist. Her goal is to make sure that abortion's available everywhere on every street corner, paid for by us. Like, she wants it to be free and accessible. That's her thing. And her bill does 4 things. The first is it gives the Minister for Health the power to force any hospital to perform abortions, even if they don't want to. The second is it turns nurses and midwives into abortionists, so they would have the power to kill babies up to 22 weeks in her bill. The third thing is she wants to turn doctors into abortionists by forcing them to actively transfer their patient to someone who will kill that baby. So at the moment, they can just give a list to someone. They can say, I don't perform abortions. I think they're wrong. They go against my conscience. Here's a list of services. But now she would have it so that you would be forced to actually engage the abortionist. So that's pretty horrific. And then the fourth part is to remove data keeping requirements. So this is a really bad bill that we obviously have to fight. And you know, our fight is definitely making waves. So the word on the street, that what I'm hearing from people within Labor, is they had no idea that we would be this organised. Amanda Conn had been working with pro-abortion forces in Labor, and their goal had been to just get this through very, very quickly. It was going to be introduced without any fanfare and then just rushed through the Parliament with very, very little debate. What really took them by surprise was our campaign, because within a week of it being announced that it was on the notice paper, we organised a rally that close to 5,000 people came to, you know, and it was a very well-attended rally. Archbishop Fisher attended the entire time, which was an incredible show of support from the Catholic Church for this campaign. And, you know, they were really stunned by the amount of people that were there. But then the letterboxing campaign that hit from that day. So the next day we were in Nathan Haggerty's seat in Leppington, a marginal Labor seat, very faith-based community. He was very angry that we were going there. He had a bit of a hissy fit online, told me as well, don't go there, don't want you to go there, you don't need to go there, that we did go there. And, you know, we've kept on going. We've gone to, you know, seat after seat after seat, and we're still doing that. And we've had hundreds of people volunteering their time to come to these letterbox drops. You know, we're printing off tens of thousands of leaflets that we're distributing through the community, and the word is getting out. And I can tell that the Labor Party is concerned. You know, I can see on Instagram that Chris Minns, Tony Burke, Jason Clay, they've all looked at my story, my Instagram story, where I'm talking about these letterbox campaigns. We're actually getting calls from Labor staffers saying, please don't, you know, come to our seat, please take the video down, you know, the video of the MP being pro-abortion and the letterbox drop. So we're actually getting lobbied actively by people within Labor saying, please don't come to our seats. And so this is definitely having an effect. And the social media videos that we're doing, because you guys are sharing it, they are getting spread further and further. Right now, I want to show you guys an interview that I did straight after the debate. So there was the first debate on the Greens bill. It went for about an hour, and then it was adjourned and into the dinner break. And at that point, MPs exit. And I actually didn't know that standing near the exit on the street is just such a lucrative place to stand, because a lot of them, they can go out the back way, but a lot of them do just walk out onto Macquarie Street. And one of those people was the New South Wales Labor Treasurer. So let's take a look at what happens when I confront him about his view on this bill. Hi, Daniel. I'm Joanna Howe. Hi. I just wanted to have a quick chat. What is your position on the radical legal abortion bill?
I haven't
Just untangle it.
formulated.
So you haven't seen the bill then?
Oh, no, I haven't
Okay.
actually.
It's a bill that gives the Minister of Health the power to force hospitals to perform abortions. They must comply. It also forces health workers to be involved in abortions. It also turns midwives and nurses into abortionists. So there's some really concerning aspects of the bill. The debate just happened. What is your position on those things?
Yeah, again,
just think that
I thank you very much for letting me know. I will pay attention to it. Thank you very much for taking the time. I'll let you know. Thank you.
So this video has now gone to over 250,000 people just on Instagram. It's gone to even more on the other platforms as well. But what's very interesting is all of you guys, really calling out Daniel Mookie, the Treasurer, for just his response to this. So first of all, he's just like literally got his jaw open. It's almost like these politicians just have never been asked a hostile question by the member of the public with a phone on. Like they're just so unused to it on the issue of abortion because the press is so on side with the pro-abortion narrative of the establishment. They're just part of this. They don't get asked these critical questions, and so he's just like literally got his mouth open because he just can't believe it. But then, in addition to taking the furtive glance at the phone to check that it's being filmed, oh, yep, you're really on camera, Daniel. We really are recording everything that you're saying. He then goes to say, basically, I've got no idea. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And, I took that at face value. So I didn't really know him very well because I don't know the New South Wales politicians very well. I'm from South Australia. But, I thought, okay, well, you are the Treasurer. So presumably, you've got a pretty big job. At one point in the interview, which I don't show, I actually say to him, are you in the lower house? Because I thought, well, maybe that would be a reason he doesn't know because he's in the lower house and this bill hasn't made its way to the lower house. But he confirms, he says, no, actually I'm in the upper house. So I was like, okay, well, you're in the upper house. You really should know about it because the Parliament literally just debated it for an hour. But I explained to him what the bill's about and he sort of says, well, I haven't made up my mind, I'll look into it. And then he goes off to have his dinner. And, at that point I thought, okay, it's not a great response. He's clearly not that diligent about important bills. There was a big rally the week before. So the fact that he, and he would have been there in the Parliament at the time, apparently could hear the chanting from the chamber. So the fact that he's claiming he doesn't know about it, it did sort of seem a little bit disingenuous to me. But thankfully you guys were on the case. And one of you guys actually pointed out that just the week before. So, literally 7 days earlier, Daniel Mookie, the Treasurer, had been standing next to the Premier, Chris Minns, when Chris Minns had been asked about his position on the Greens abortion bill. So there's Daniel Mookie. Take a look at this picture. There he is. Minns is being asked about the abortion bill. And Mookie's right there. So he hears everything that's being said. And then another one of you guys forwarded me this article in the Australian Financial Review, which makes it very clear that Daniel Mookie is married to a senior advisor for Penny Sharp. Now, Penny Sharp is the leader of opposition business for the Labor Party in the upper house. She stands up and gives the first speech about the Radical Greens abortion bill to the Parliament that very evening. So an hour before I interviewed Daniel Mookie on the street, his wife has presumably helped write the speech that her boss has given in the Parliament on this very bill. So it's pretty unlikely then that this is a genuine response, that he really didn't know anything about it. And then I did a few further phone calls because you guys had done such good sleuthing. I rang some of my contacts in the party and I said, well, has this bill been discussed in Labor? What's going on? Daniel Mookie claims he hasn't heard of it, hasn't seen it. And they said, well, no, we've received emails from head office 2 weeks ago. Head office had emailed all of the Labor caucus about the bill and it had actually been discussed in Labor caucus what Labor was going to do. So, it's pretty clear that Labor is playing games here, that here we have, someone who's probably in the top 3 most powerful people in the New South Wales Labor Party. I catch him on the street and he plays dumb. And it leaves a bad taste in your mouth because it makes you feel like you just can't trust them. Like when he says, I don't know anything about this bill, he could have said, I don't know what I'm going to do about this bill. I haven't formed a position on it. But he just plays dumb completely on the idea of the bill itself. And then, And then the Labor Party itself has been very unclear because, I am hearing from religious leaders, from priests in Western Sydney, who are telling me that senior Labor Party figures are telling them that they've blocked this bill, that this bill isn't going to go through. You don't need to worry about it. The bill's blocked. You don't have to worry. When Tony Burke got up at this pulpit, apparently the priest at this church had been told that Labor was blocking the bill. It wasn't happening, and Chris Minns gives this speech to the Catholic Maronite Society where he says, this bill is against religious freedom. I am for religious freedom. I believe that people should be able to practice their faith in New South Wales. And, he says this bill is against that. And so what you can see is behind closed doors, Labor is networking deeply with faith leaders in religious communities to try to get them on side. But what they're essentially doing is lying. Maybe the Labor Party has resolved to block the bill, but that's certainly not what they've said publicly. Publicly, they've said this is a conscience vote, and we have no guarantees from them that any part of this bill is being blocked. Penny Sharp and Rose Jackson, in fact, have gotten up in the Parliament. The only two speeches Labor has given about this bill have supported elements of this bill. They've said, we believe that nurses and midwives should be able to become abortionists. And they've even said, we're going to support this bill to proceed to the second reading committee stage. So if Labor was blocking this bill, as they're telling religious communities, then we would be hearing that from Labor. There would be something public to that effect, when the only public statements that have been made is Chris Minns saying, I'm against the bill, but he's just one vote. He's just one vote, so he cannot block this bill by himself. And then two pro-abortion Labor MPs saying, we support this bill going to second reading stage. So you can see how manipulative this is, how deeply conniving and manipulative this is. They're turning around to religious leaders, people like Chris Minns saying, I won't be voting for this bill. And then the religious leaders are hearing, Labor is blocking the bill. The bill's not going to pass, when in fact that nothing could be further from the truth. And what they're trying to do is get faith-based communities to trust Labor at the very time that Labor needs it, because there's a federal election going on. And to be clear, we're not falling for it. Chris Minns voted for abortion up to birth in New South Wales in 2019. The Labor Party in New South Wales is overrun by a militant pro-abortion organisation called Emily's List that Penny Sharp and Rose Jackson are a part of. And here we have the New South Wales Treasurer, the number 3 in the party, lying to my face, which you guys have exposed. Thank you for doing that. But it really leaves us with, the end point that we cannot trust these guys. And so we can't trust Labor, and this bill isn't blocked. That's the status quo. This bill is going to proceed through the Parliament, and if a conscience vote was held today, it very likely would pass. So that means we need to ramp up our campaign. And a big question that we had is, when do we do the rally? And so while we were on the break from the Dr. Joe show, the biggest question that I was trying to work through with people is, do we do this rally before the federal election, or do we do it after? So I reflected on all of that, and where I landed was, although we are growing, let's face it, our numbers are bigger and growing more quickly than we ever thought. We pulled 5,000 out for a rally that was organised in less than a week. We have 30 to 40 people, sometimes 50, attending our letterboxes each day. So this is huge. What's happening here? This channel is growing, but at this point, we can't destroy every baby-killing, loving politician that there is. So, if we wanted to kill Albanese outright, I'm not sure that at this point we have the political capital and the numbers to do that. And when I say kill, I mean politically kill, of course, just to be clear. But we can take out one, and that is this. We can actually defeat this Greens abortion bill in New South Wales. And if we did that, it would be huge, because let's face it, our side has never won. We've maybe tinkered a bit with these really radical abortion bills and got a few amendments in, but we've never actually stopped something like this, really, through a massive outpouring of the people. And I really believe we're on the cusp of that now. I know that the Labor Party is incredibly nervous about what we're doing. And so the reason we're holding the rally on May 7 is because that'll be at the very hour and time that this bill is being debated, at the very moment that the New South Wales Parliament is going to be discussing how they can kill more babies according to this evil Greens plan. we will be on the street outside the parliament making so much noise that they won't be able to do their business inside, because we'll be chanting and we'll be speaking up for these babies. And I want them to know that we are not distractible, that we are not going away, that if they allow this bill to pass, any part of it, if they amend it a little bit to try and appease us, we are not going to be appeased. There is no compromise that can be made on this bill that we will be okay with. I want the rally to be held at a time when they are physically in the building, when they are proximate to us. And it doesn't matter if the mainstream media doesn't cover the rally, they will hear it with their own ears. As they walk out of the chamber for the dinner break at 6:30, they will be confronted by us on the street. They will see us, they will hear us, and there's no way they cannot see our passion and our conviction. And what that means is they'll have to know that we're not going away, even if this bill were to pass. And you know, I really believe that it won't if we do what we're doing, but let's just imagine that it did. If they were to pass it, I want them to know that this then begins a very long campaign all the way up till the next election that we are not going to forget, because that is something that happened in 2019. They passed abortion up to birth, and it was almost like the pro-life movement was just so deflated that it just couldn't come back. It couldn't come back, you know. And a lot of those amazing organisations like Life Choices and Right to Life and even Women's Forum that were just really active in 2019, we didn't see or hear a lot about abortion up to birth in New South Wales after that point. And I want them to know that is not happening. There's like a new sheriff in town and we are not going away. Like, our movement is not something that gets deflated by a loss. We get energised by it and we come back even stronger. And I want them to know that. And that's why the rally is on May 7. That's why it's really important that you guys come. And I'm actually going to say to you, if you're in a different state or territory, do seriously consider about flying in for this rally, because I believe it could be a turning point for not just New South Wales, but our whole country. If we actually got a win on this bill against the Greens and against the pro-abortion forces in Labor, this could actually be a galvanising moment for us. And so the numbers are really important. I know for the first rally, like, I met a wonderful young woman called Laura who'd flown in from the Sunshine Coast. I also met people that had travelled from regional New South Wales. I know a lot of the churches as well sent bus loads. So I know that people did that for the first rally, but the second rally does need to be even bigger. So I'm going to really encourage you to do that. Also, the letterboxing, we'll put the details in the chat, but you can also go to my link, which updates about when the letterboxes are happening. You know, my dream would be that we'd get 100 people at these letterboxes. You know, we're probably a quarter to a halfway there for some of the letterboxes. I would love us to just be getting such serious numbers that really they just know they can't do this. And so I don't know the future, but I can promise you this. One of two options happens. Either this bill fails and we win in our campaign, or this bill passes and Labor will not be in government. They're already on shaky ground. They're a minority government in New South Wales, but we will do everything we can to make sure they do not win the next election, and they're punished for this because they should be. Monica Dumit, writing in the Catholic Weekly, has really spoken really powerfully about what this bill's about. And I'm just going to read it to you guys. So she says, this is not about availability. It is about trying to create a society where abortion is unquestioned. And such a society begins with laws that silence any objection to abortion or any treatment of it as different to routine healthcare. This is why it is so important we continue to object publicly to abortion. Your public witness and mine is the only thing standing in the way of a culture that knows abortion is the taking of an innocent human life, and one that considers it as unremarkable as root canal. We need to protest every time. We need to write, ring and rally. The Greens and others like them are counting on us giving up, either because we are too exhausted or too complacent or believe that our efforts are futile. We might have to wait 50 years for these horrible laws to change. We might not see victory in our lifetime, but the laws matter less than the culture they form, and our voices on behalf of the unborn can and will shape this culture. When she wrote those words, and I read them, they honestly moved me in a way that I find it hard to explain, because I feel like she got to the crux of it. This debate that New South Wales is having isn't even about abortion per se. It's about something much bigger than that, because what the Greens are trying to do is force people who really are against something to be involved in that thing. And it is even like killing babies is just so fundamentally wrong, but forcing people to kill babies, like this is the next step of transforming us, as she says, into a culture which says that abortion is just like root canal. And, we don't even have to take her words for it. This was literally in Rose Jackson's speech, the pro-abortion MP in Labor. She said, getting an abortion should be as simple as treating cancer or knee surgery. And so this is the Orwellian place that these pro-abortion forces are from. And it's why we cannot stay silent, and it's why we cannot afford to lose. So, I want to thank all of you who continue to support this campaign, either financially or through your prayers or through turning up to the community actions and to the rallies. Everything that you guys do is just so important. But at this point, when we're 3 weeks out from the rally, the most important thing I need from you is to spread the word, because all of this to say is this is a very evil, evil bill. And the only thing that can stop it is us. And that's today on The Dr. Jo Show.